Craft Brews and Casual Conversations. Joined with me today to talk some pretty important stuff here, to talk about the Guardian Project actor, activist Mark Pallegrino. You can see him from Netflix's 13 Reasons Why, as well as the CW Supernatural. And also joined with me is Andrew, is it Rossow? Rossow. I was kind of close. He is a lawyer, as well as an anti-bullying activist, and also part of the Guardian Project. So let's dive into it right away. The Guardian Project is it a new thing? How did it get developed? How did you, Mark and Andrew, get together on this?
The Guardian Project started as a informal group of people on the internet who gathered around me to support me and help me fight off hordes of bullies. One of the people who was engaged in engaging these bullies talked to me privately and said, "Oh, I feel like I'm your bodyguard." And over long conversations, she developed the term Guardian, and Guardian Project sort of was born out of this desire for some folks in the fandom to stand up for innocent people who are being victimized. Then I did a cameo for Andrew for his bullying site called Cyberbite, and then he asked me to do an interview. The interview was about an hour, but our post-interview went for about an hour and a half because we discovered that we had very similar situations, not only with respect to witnessing bullying, but being a victim of bullying, and even a lot of our early life profile, the way we grew up, sort of lined up. And we decided that was serendipity, and we had to do something about it. And so we decided to get together. I pitched him a project for television, and he connected me with producers and influencers and media folks, and we've been pulling together this project ever since. Does that pretty much describe things, Andrew, or what do you think?
I think so. I think you nailed it. Perfect.
Yeah, great. So, I mean, we live in a world where, social media is such a big part of our lives now, and I'm 30 years old, so I kind of have been on, I guess you could say, born with the rise of the internet as well. And now it's like so ingrained even in my children's lives. And you see it, and, and especially like on days like today where there's an election going, you just see all this crazy cyber bullying and just bullying in general, where people can, some people say they're hiding behind an avatar or whatever. But, I think it's in person too, like in high schools and even in the workplace. And why is it important that we work together to stop this? And how do we get people to take it more seriously? Because I think some people just kind of ignore it and just don't take it for what it is.
Well, I think the playground bully picked on specific people, which was bad enough. But now that the internet has opened up the field and put people behind a veil of anonymity, anybody could be a victim. Anybody. You're not too big to be taken down by this crazy mob. And you're also not too small to make a comment that can really hurt someone and cause lasting damage, particularly when more and more people pile onto that, when they smell blood in the water. So for me, the reason to be concerned about it is because the population who can be victimized is everybody.
Right.
It's no longer just a few. It's now everybody. What do you think, Andrew?
You're right. It follows us home. And Drew, I'm 30 years old also. So we grew up in the digital age. We watched and witnessed the digitization of music, where peer-to-peer file sharing started with Kazaa, LimeWire, Napster. Then we watched the birth of social media. Do you remember Zynga?
Yeah.
And MySpace? I had a Zynga. Can't access it now. I don't know if it's still able, but we've watched the transformation of why these platforms are coming into existence, but why people like you, Mark, and myself are using it and how we're using it. So, I think the difficulty is our landscape doesn't really believe or isn't convinced for some reason that cyberbullying is a crime, right? And for those laws or those harassment laws that are in place that most states have, most states have some sort of electronic harassment law,
Mm-hmm.
they're slap on the wrists, right? There's nothing really behind it. And that's a problem because regulators, lawmakers, and the average person don't necessarily think there's a direct correlation between words behind a screen and the person on the other side.
Right.
Okay. So that sticks and stones metaphor that we grew up listening to and were taught is wrong. It's just a lie. And I think it's one of society's biggest lies because words do hurt and words do kill if they are used in certain ways.
Sure, and it's especially when words become magnified, and then a narrative is created that is false, and then that narrative gets pitched to people's employers, workmates, and it ends up either jaundicing the workplace or getting the person fired because corporations are so afraid to tangle with these mobs. That gives them real power. That causes objective damages in people's lives. I myself have been a victim of all kinds of false narratives. And it doesn't matter that you've proven them wrong. They're
Right.
not interested in truth. What they're interested in is taking down someone they perceive to be bigger than them.
For whatever the reason.
And
For
some
whatever
are
the
even getting clout, group clout from engaging with a check mark, and they get followers that way, and they become part of a group. Even if the group's negative and nihilistic, it doesn't matter to them. The fact that they're a part of something makes them feel meaningful and important.
It's a sick popularity contest where the person who ends up on, Mark's radar or my radar, whoever has a blue check, the mere fact that they're being recognized, blocked, response, whatever it is, that's how they gain their, as Mark said, their clout within their group. That's what gives them the experience, that superiority in that group. And
It's a merit badge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Merit badge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's been many occasions where you just see, even on Twitter, where they're like, "Oh, so and so blocked me because I said this," and yeah, you're right. They do wear it as like this weird badge of honor. I mean, why do you think that is? Why do you think people even go to push like this negative narrative so much? Is it solely on popularity? Are they? You think maybe there's something going on with them internally that they need? They just need some sort of support, or they're looking to be a part of a group. Are they themselves being bullied? What do you think?
Probably all of the above. I think it's a form of power. And I think people who seek power are psychologically fractured in some way. So all of those, I would put Washington, almost all of Washington, in that category. If you seek power over other people, there's something wrong with you. There's seriously something wrong with you. And but at least the person in Washington has to go through obstacles in life. There are things they have to genuinely overcome in order to attain their position. So it's a bit of an achievement. It doesn't take much to hit the return button to say something in 5 seconds that can damage someone's life forever, and then hit the return button. So with very little effort, very little risk or consequence, you've just achieved something that makes you feel very powerful. So yeah, do these people need therapy? Yeah, for sure.
And it's a lack of accountability. It's knowing in many respects that, I can do anything. I can say anything and nobody can do anything about it. Nobody can find me. Nobody can arrest me. Nobody, the worst that somebody can do is say, you're terrible or you're wrong. And guess what I get to do? I get to block them, or I get to go after them now too. And it's cyberspace. It's the lack of a physical presence that seems to be that common element as to what empowers these aggressors, these trolls, but also for lawmakers and regulators, also hinders their ability to comprehend the seriousness of it, of, just because Mark is in California, you're in Wisconsin, doesn't mean you both can't do something to cause physical harm to me here in Texas, right? And it's hard for some reason for people to grasp.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a a lawyer or a person who's been in kind of this cyber law space, what have some like improvements you've seen, or is there what can we do more to make sure these people are protected on social media? Because social media isn't all evil. It does connect people, and it connects people like you and I together. But also, yeah, there's an immense amount of negativity on there. But what laws should people be aware of? What's the difference between saying I have the free speech to saying this on Facebook versus I'm actually pushing someone to potentially end their lives or hurt somebody?
Sure. Look, I mean, it's just how it's used, right? Guns aren't bad. It's when they're used in a certain way, can they cause harm with a specific purpose, right? We've heard the expression guns don't, guns kill people, or guns don't kill people. People kill people. Social media isn't bad. It's how it's used. When it's weaponized is where the problem begins. And I think, Marcus, I think you'll agree, but it starts with education. It starts with people. And I think what Mark and I are doing, we're different ages. We come from different worlds, but share similar experiences, and the ability to connect and to share with just each other and understand what we both went through allows us to try to humanize our own experiences for others, to first be vulnerable to the people we want to reach out to. So there is, a connection that people can say, okay, I'm not the only one out there. So I think first and foremost, awareness, educating, because the big problem today across the board is people believe what they hear, people believe what they see, they don't question it. We need to question. We need to ask questions. When we don't understand, ask. And from my experience, it's starting to get better in terms of regulators and lawmakers and those in positions of authority to say there's something here, we just don't know what to do about it. And there's many senators, Robert Zirkin out of Maryland, with Grace's Law. There are senators that are now starting to identify, who are fathers and parents themselves, say, look, I have a daughter, I have a son. I don't like this. I don't want to know that by me saying there doesn't need to be a bill, that I would one day have to stand in a courtroom and say that same thing, right? How can a father look at somebody who's on the stand and defend them, right? So that's the analogy of these senators are saying, we're also acting as fathers, as mothers, as parents. It doesn't matter if you can't see it, it's there. So I think education's the big key here. And Mark, I don't know what you think on that.
I mean, it's a deep. I think our society's in a fairly deep hole, and there's there's lots of tiers to the problem here that I think that have been systematized by education, and it just has made people volatile, excitable, irrational, tribalistic, and those are cultural trends that we're going to have to fight against. But what I think incentivizes all of that, as you suggested, Andrew, is anonymity, the inability to connect with the person and the person that you're hurting, and with your inability to connect with the fact that you're harming them, and the anonymity factor, where you can, if you get suspended, you can come back under a bogus email with a different handle and continue to do your damage. To me, if you've caused objective damages to somebody, then you should be banned permanently. This can happen to check marks because their IDs, their actual identity is linked to their accounts in such a way that they get banned. They're banned. They're done from that particular platform. And if other platforms agreed, right now they agree that hostility sells more, lies sell more, it creates clickbait, it makes you more addicted to the platform itself. If they agreed, no, we actually have a wider view of social media than just sowing discontent and conflict. We actually want to connect people. Then if all these platforms could get together and say, we'll link people's identities in such a way that you can't get back onto any social media platform once you've fucked up big time here. If you fuck up big time on Twitter, you start a change.org petition with all kinds of lies to try to get somebody fired, and that has material damages to somebody's reputation, you're done. You're out. And to me, I mean, the market is trying to solve the problem now by creating other platforms, but they're problematic in their own way. I think for Twitter, it's a matter of Jack not using the algorithms he's using. And those are informed by social justice academics. They're not objective. And they sow seeds of distrust in at least half or more of the population who now don't trust Jack. And as a communication platform, or at least as one that pretends to be a free speech platform, you need the trust of the people. You're going to lose the market share eventually. Jack's not always going to be on top. That's just the way things work. But you certainly don't want to use it by showing the world that you have no fucking integrity. Mm-hmm. I mean, have integrity. Have integrity. What should you what speech is bannable? Violence, libel, slander, people passing on false narratives. But I don't know that Jack should be accountable to these people doing that. I think the individuals doing it should be held accountable for what they're doing. If you're a free speech platform, you don't have, and you're that vast, you don't have the time, I don't think, or the resources to fact check every single tweet that comes down the pike. But individuals can take care of it themselves if we start reforming the way social media looks at what force, what violence, what libels actually mean, the damages that they do, and we bring lawmakers in on the process as well.
You know, social media isn't a right? It's a privilege, and convenience will always trump privacy. We all buy into, as consumers, into these privacy risks. So we all have the choice whether or not we want to go into the world of social media, to come onto Facebook, to come onto Twitter, Instagram, Parler, MySpace, whatever it is. But in doing so, you are going to have to give up some sort of anonymity, of privacy, because you're entering into that world. And, you know, I think that's a fair exchange in the sense of a platform trying to do its best to hold its users accountable to provide a safe environment, right? No different than the DMV or, you know, TSA, whatever it is you still, if you choose to use those services, there are things that you have to do to verify your legitimacy as a person. So, you know, God forbid something does happen that threatens public safety and welfare, that there's a way to handle it, to address it. And I just don't think, and I think, Mark, what you said is, I just don't think those systems are yet in place, or they're just not being used. You know, Twitter requires every individual who has a blue check to have previously submitted an identification, a driver's license, a passport. What else are they doing with that? You know, Can they extend that same request to the users?
Yeah, and I was gonna kind of touch on it a little bit too. I was gonna say how much, how much responsibility do we put on the CEOs of these companies? You know, Mark Zuckerberg, we've seen him in front of Congress and everything, giving these speeches, answering these questions, and sometimes the questions asked, really, I don't know if the person asking them necessarily knows exactly what they're asking them. They have these assumptions, but also Mark Zuckerberg, I don't know that he's up to give 100% of accurate information, because it's his company and everything like that. What do we do to put more pressure on them? Is it more litigation? Is it just people coming together and trying to report the people that are doing the bullying? Of course, there's issues with that in itself, where some people might falsely report me for misunderstanding a comment, or just they have something against me and they're trying to get me banned altogether. Like, what do we do there?
Well, I certainly think that the attempts on the part of our Congress to interfere with and regulate Facebook and Twitter, Google, and to break them up as quote unquote monopolies, Amazon, it's a dangerous precedent that's already been set. I definitely don't think that's the way to go. And I'm a person who has very contrary opinions to the CEOs of all those companies, but private property is private property. The terms of service are the terms of service. And I think it can be dealt with privately through real litigation and through getting these CEOs to see that they're losing the credibility and will eventually lose market share if they keep doing what they do. So, you know, speak to their pocketbooks and to practicality. Maybe Jack's made enough money and he doesn't care if he's fair or not, if he's honest or not, if he has integrity or not, if he's pushing a narrative. Or he could push a narrative. It's his site, for crying out loud. It's not up to Congress to tell him what to say or what not to say.
Right.
And it's scary that they think it is. But certainly enough people, can get together and say, oh, I might sue you. I might sue you for this because it's a form of defamation, or because they might sue them for, having gained a certain number of followers that are being now clicked off involuntarily. I had a follower say to me, Mark, I thought you liked me. Why did you unfollow me? I didn't unfollow this person. It was somebody trying to de-network us. Yeah. And that's, I didn't, is that fair? I guess it must be in the terms of service that I didn't read when I signed on. If that's the way they do things, that's a fucked up way to do things. And to me, operate with integrity and fairness, and the rest will follow. So perhaps it's private lawsuits, perhaps it's citizens banding together, as in the guardians who come together and defend people online, mm-hmm. and or maybe our media project where we start exposing some of these people and making them connect with victims in a way that might change the narrative.
I think Congress, to your point, Mark, I think Congress forcing, Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey and, these individuals to come before it and answer questions just on that level, I think is enough. And I agree with Mark in terms of setting a dangerous precedent, which has already been set. But at the same time, just the ability to have questions presented to where you and I can sit and just hear what questions are being asked and how the responses are being, given. That's powerful in and of itself, even if there is no quote punishment or consequence of that, but forcing, I don't like that word.
That's what it is though.
And that's the double-edged sword
and that's what's scary about it to me,
is it should be these platform owners should be encouraged. They should want to, right? They should want to continue to grow their network and have the support. Because look, a lot of senators are on Facebook. Right. Our government's on Facebook, right? But I guarantee you, most people don't know how to use it. We learned that last year when, Zuckerberg first came on, when I forget who the senator was, but somebody said, well, Mr. Zuckerberg, how does Facebook make money? And he kind of smirked and goes, well, through advertisements, Senator. So I think the problem again goes back to awareness. Is, do we even understand the platforms that we're on? Mm-hmm. Do the users understand it? Do the creators themselves understand what they've created, or has it become too big? So it's a lot of open-ended questions, but I feel these are questions people should just hear. The way that they are being heard is not the best way, and that's where I agree with Mark on that.
Yeah, and then as somebody who uses social media every day, as I haven't, of course, the individual accounts, the podcast accounts, you're on Twitter and everything like that, and you guys have the blue check mark where I don't. So I think, I guess when people are like verified, when they think of bullying, cyberbullying, they think if you have a blue check mark that you're kind of invincible to it, or it kind of gives you that target to come at you a little bit harder or more. What's been your experience like as a celebrity, a person in that has a public appearance, or is on TV, is doing these things, or even with like the announcement of the Guardian Project and working on these things? How have people approached it or talked about it? Has it been positive?
For me, it's been, the typical double-edged sword. Some people love it and other people hate it. And it's dependent on their perception of me as an individual. And For the most part, we've normalized the idea that if you feel something about somebody, it must be so. So if people don't like me or have acquired a distaste for me because they don't like my politics or the way I express myself, then that just sort of bleeds over into everything, and I'm not credible to them as a human being, period. They don't seek to know anything more than what they're feeling, and those people don't like the project and think it's a sham. And then there are people who understand what I'm talking about, I think, who are a lot more circumspect and rational, who really think this is a great idea and want to promote it and push it forward. But they are less activist. They're less energized. They're less fueled. I mean, because, it's not anger and rage, even if it's senseless and illogical, is a very efficient form of energy, and people exploit it to take false narratives pretty far. As a check mark, I have come up against people who don't think they can hurt you. Mm-hmm. So they think they can do anything to you. And it's like the smaller person who thinks, I could punch this big guy in the stomach as hard as I can. It's not going to hurt him. He's strong. He can take it. But it's not true. Everybody's a human being. Just because you have a check mark and a lot of followers doesn't mean you're invincible. Nobody is.
Right.
And we've seen cancel culture take people out at the knees.
Yeah.
Some of them deservedly so, because they were predators and they needed to be. I think I'm not entirely against social opprobrium. I think there are times when it is quite necessary, but not when it's false narratives and you just don't have the balls to stand up against the mob. If it's true and provable, okay. Look, I got attacked for the first time because I stood up for somebody who was being falsely accused, it turned out a year and a half later, of sexual harassment, inappropriate sexual behavior. I stood up for him, not for him specifically, but for due process. And I urged the people who were attacking him to take their complaint to the police and settle it through the court of law. What ended up happening was this person's life was ruined. He lost his home. He lost his contract with the convention agency. He lost jobs in the future. He was homeless for 2 years. The first thing you saw on his on a Google search for him was a false accusation of pederasty, for crying out loud. He was annihilated by these disgusting, nihilistic rageaholics. And I was the person who stood up for him. And that's when I came on their radar as evil man number two, the second guy they're trying to take out at the knees. They like it. That's their thing.
It's a guilty by association, I think, is what we're seeing. Is it doesn't matter if you even, in the minds of these aggressors, it doesn't matter if you're standing up for a victim. The mere fact that you're standing up for a victim who individuals believe to be wrong, a fraud, whatever narrative is being spun, that makes you a target as well. Mark's just explained to you, I'm going through it. I have gone through it. I'm going through it a little bit now with the stuff that people always try and spin a narrative. And there's always going to be somebody that tries to bring, our project down, bring our vision down. And that just gives us even more reason to keep it going. And not everyone's going to like what we do, like us. That's okay. But to actively go out and try to sabotage something that is designed to help people, to help mental health, and to give people a place of comfort and security, to know that they're not alone, that's powerful. And I don't like that people are trying to take that away simply because they feel that they have all the information, that they have all the eggs in a basket. And we understand that doing this often makes ourselves victims.
And I also hope that, when people learn about the Guardian Project or, get more into it, that they can acknowledge that they themselves have been part of the problem, that, maybe I am, it brings a new perspective to them, and they can redeem themselves in a way and go against their patterns and their behaviors, because maybe it's just something like this that just takes that, you know, it takes showing them and actually like seeing the damage versus just looking on a screen and then logging off. When they see the damage that they're doing to these people, and to just, you know, this whole atmosphere that maybe they can change their ways. I know some people have the capacity to do that and some people don't, but I think this project is a really good thing, and I think it gives the opportunity to bring people together and also to educate those that are doing the behavior. So I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if people want to get more involved with the Guardian Project or learn more about it, where can they go? How can they contact, you know, the people who are part of it, or even see what you guys are up to?
Andrew, you want to go with
Sure. Sure. So we have our Kickstarter. The Kickstarter is live right now. So if you just type in the Guardian Project on Kickstarter, it will come up. You'll see Mark's name. You'll see my name. There's a powerful, powerful video that Mark has recorded to give individuals an idea of what the project is about. And then you can read on, and it really goes into detail as to why a multi-tiered approach, you know, seems to be the best, you know, course of action. You can, you know, email us, you know, info@guardian-project.com, you know, and obviously if, you know, our social channels, we keep open. So any of the Guardian Project handles, you know, that are linked to the Kickstarter, one of us, you know, our people from our team will always respond. And that's the biggest thing, is we're not above anybody, right? We understand people are busy, people miss messages, but we want to try and change that. We want to try and show people that we're all equal. And I think that's what, even, you know, today is the election. We're all equal. We're all in the same boat. We all want the same thing. And we need to learn how to communicate that safely and effectively.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add.
No, you said it all. Thanks.
All right. Well, Mark, Andrew, I really appreciate you guys coming on the show and talking about this, and I look forward to the further details and the development of the Guardian Project. And yeah, best of luck. And let's hope you know, this time next year we're not blown up.
That would be good.
Let's
that
hope.
would be good.
Fingers crossed.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right, thank you, guys.